Hello. All right. Looks like we're live. Might just fire up. Actually, it's already playing. Might just fire this up. This is the track we'll be talking about. This is Spirit in Every Hill and a Monster in Every Lake. It's the sixth track on Earth. Sorry, the fifth track on the album. This one has got a fair amount of attention. Excuse me, I had a message in the chat here. Playing. It's the fifth track from the album. Hey Scott, how's it going? Well, welcome to the stream. I hope you find it interesting. Right now I was just playing the song to kind of give, just in case anyone dropped yourself, dropped dead, wasn't familiar with it, they could kind of hear what we're talking about before we get too far into it. Good. Thank you for letting me know that the levels are solid. Yeah. I don't know if I'll even play the full song. But we are almost halfway through it now. It's kind of like, yeah, let it get going. Maybe let one or two people show up. I don't know if that'll actually happen or not. Although we showed up, so that's a good sign. Yeah, so like I was explaining, this is the fifth song on my album, The Mechanics of Mysticism. This one is one that has attracted, actually, a fair amount of attention. I got a fair number of comments on it. I think it's sold a couple of individual copies. I'd have to double check on that. I think it's sold at least one. And I know it's appeared on at least one radio show, and actually, I think it's two or three radio shows it's appeared on. So, for me, that's pretty good. Good amount of attention. Voice could be louder. Okay. Like, I should speak a little louder, or I should turn my mic up, I think. Because I can do either. Try turning the mic up. I mean, I have a limiter on there, but maybe I'm not driving it quite hard enough either. So let me know if that's better or if it's too loud. And I'm going to go ahead and stop that and focus on talking for just a minute anyway, since looks like we're into the discussion of this. Yeah, so this was the fifth track on the album. It was the sixth track that I recorded. It's at 66 BPM, which is fun. So got a little 666 thing going there if you're into numerology at all. Hopefully that's not an offensive numerology to you, that you're not like super Christian or whatever. Instrument. It's in B flat minor, and it uses the chords. It's 5-6-4-1 chord progression, so that's like kind of the classic pop chord progression rearranged just a little bit. Doesn't sound very poppy in this context for sure. So that's let's see, F minor, G flat major, or is that like G flat diminished? Anyway, fourth chord is E flat minor and then B flat minor. Yeah, so a bunch of minor chords and then one major or diminished. I think it's a major chord. Anyway, yeah. Right, that's the major chord. Yeah. Okay. So my music theory is, it's iffy. yeah, but the jam started off with Strega, O-Coast, Hydrocent on the chords, drum brute impact, and then I actually used my K4, the Kwai K4, a patch called Digilog 1. And let's see if we can see sorry about that. You'll have to excuse. Oh, it's not the right menu. Never mind. There we go. Okay, so Digilog. Here it is. I think. Yeah. So that part, this is part of the initial jam, but as you can see here, it is only used for a short piece. Now this would have been playing probably throughout the whole thing when I was jamming this out. But over the course of the production, it got reduced to just this. And so you can see this is like a little, like a digital pad, choir patch. It's a little breathy attack. Some synth background. Very 80s Rompler pad kind of vibe. Yep. And so again, yeah, this would have been playing throughout the whole thing in the during the thing. But otherwise, it was this bass here. This is the Strega doing this bass. So probably a more demonstrative piece. Drums, drum brute impact. They sounded like this. This is the Hydrocent. This is a patch that was called 3 Synth Deluxe is what this was called. Just use like 3 different synthesis methods. I think so. Like one layer is FM, one layer is like a wave table kind of sound with a lot of movement over like wave sequencing, wave. What do they call it on the Hydrocent? It's not wave sequencing. It's scanning, wave scanning. So it's just moving through a little, this is the O-Coast. Sorry, what I was saying is it's moving through weird harmonics on that wavetable. It's scanning the wavetable, moving through weird harmonics. Sorry, I mean to not complete my thought. So this is the O-Coast through the Field Kit FX, which is just to say some spring reverb and possibly a little bit of PT99 delay. It sounds very clean for PT99 though, so. And this, another easel part that I made later for a transition, I think. When it says easel, that's the Strega, the O-Coast, and the O-Control together. That's what I consider the easel. Okay, so yeah, that is the what I started with on this track. And this one is, as far as most of these tracks go, this is one of the more complex ones, as you can see. I mean, if this is the first time you've stopped in here, obviously you don't have much to compare it to, but let me unsolo that track. Stop this. But yeah, as you can see, this one's, it's got 30 some layers, 34 layers it looks like. 34 tracks, I should say. Some doing more than others. These down here, this is like some extra stuff that didn't actually make it in. I cut pieces of this up and there are pieces of it in there, but this is what was left over. Yeah, so this track is, in some ways, is one of the more central tracks on the album. It's has like a very history of this is that my wife likes to go camping, and we frequently camp around lakes, and I would take my kids down to the lake, usually wherever we were camping, and just like walk around the lake. And I would always talk about I got this idea, I guess is what I should say, that every lake maybe has a lake monster, like the Loch Ness monster, or there's supposed to be one in like Lake Michigan, I want to say, whose name escapes me right now. I'm a big fan of Daniel Pinkwater. That's an author of mostly children's books, and he wrote about a lake monster. One of his stories, and it was about a lake monster, and there's a couple others that sort of mention lake monsters or imply that they might be fairly common things. It's just an idea I've had in my head forever. And curiously enough, so I had this idea at one point to write like a book, or like a children's book, or like maybe a website for just weird nerds that maybe you could adapt for your D&D or something that was identified the lake monsters for each different lake, maybe in Colorado. Like each one I'd go to, I'd photograph it, and then make up a lake monster for it, Photoshop them in, or get someone to draw them or something. That never went anywhere. I never did anything with that. But the idea had been in my head. And when I was doing the concepts for this album and was thinking about different elements of mysticism and mystical experience, this idea kept coming back to me, and it made me think about how, typically in shamanism and mystical traditions from native peoples, and also from non-native peoples, from Western peoples, from Celts and Gaels, whatever, different primitive Germans, primitive Anglo-Saxons, I'm sure they all did something similar, like for example, the Celts definitely have all these stories about fairy circles and creatures living in the land and all this stuff that's very very much along these lines of what I'm describing here. It's simply a matter of them, what's the word I'm grasping for here? It is a matter of them, whether or not they've made it down to us, or what form they've made it down to us in. Anyway, so I got this idea, people, they look at the landscape around them, people who don't understand, who don't have a scientific basis or scientific understanding of whatever concept, whether it's erosion or, sudden storms, whatever, and they make up stories, is what they do. They come up with a narrative for what's happening, and sometimes part of that narrative is supernatural creatures, spirits, a spirit in every hill, a monster in every lake. It's just a way that people, pre-scientific peoples especially, explain things. And so I really leaned into this idea that every lake might have a lake monster. Every hill has a spirit in it, and mystics tap into this. That's, again, in primitive societies, it's one of the things that shaman or mystics do is they travel to these dream worlds, and then they come back and with stories that explain phenomena in people's lives and help them, give them a context to understand that. Very non-judgmental. I place all religions, religious beliefs on the exact same plane. There's nothing better or worse. You might find something that's more effective for you or less effective for you, but I just want to make it clear, I'm not placing any judgment on any of this stuff. This is all equally fascinating to me, and all led to this sort of inspiration for this. Anyway, maybe enough talking about that. That's where the idea came from. Telling my kids, and I would tell, I mentioned I was kids. I would frequently tell these stories to my kids. I would make up a lake monster and, tell them about the giant, water strider that lived in the lake and that would pull people under. Oh, and that's another thing. I think some of those stories did come, and then part of that was I didn't really want to scare my kids. I didn't really think they believed that, but you want to, maybe you put a kernel of doubt in their mind so they don't get too close to the shore and drown, right? They don't wade out too far if they do decide to wade out and drown, where something actually can happen to them. And of course, I think that was an impulse for primitive peoples is to protect their kids as well. You tell them that whether you believe it or not, and I think a lot of times, of course, they did believe it, but yeah, there's a monster in the hill. If you wander too far, if you go over that hill, the monster might get you. And really, of course, that's just about, there were monsters in the hills. There were wolves and, saber-tooth tigers and whatever else. Anyway, so yeah, that's the name, that's sort of the inspiration where this came from. I really leaned into that as a concept too. In terms of, since I had sort of come up with this in part because of my children, I utilized them. A lot of the weird sounds that you hear, the animal sounds, if you will, are my kids making weird sounds. Let's see here. Yeah, that is my son, I'm pretty sure. That's definitely my son. Now, obviously, I put it through a bunch of effects. It's going through like a pitch shifter and some delay here. And what is this one? Yeah, this is also my son. So this entire track is all my son making weird noises. So I asked them, my son and my daughter, at one point while I was doing pre-production, I just took a little handheld recorder and walked up to them and said, hey, make some weird noises, and put it in front of their face, and they made a bunch of weird screeching. I don't know if y'all have children. They're real fucking obnoxious. They're always making weird noises of one sort or another. So I thought, well, I might as well take advantage of this. Recorded them making some weird sounds, and then utilize those in the track. I think my daughter is in here too, but not sure exactly where. This is all water sounds. Some Benjamin sounds in here. Yeah, a lot of sounds that I just recorded around my house. Here's a squirrel. Oh, we gotta solo this one. This has obviously been pitched down quite a bit. Went through a bunch of effects. But that started as a squirrel. This is my dog. Oh, gotta solo it. Here's a recording of some albatrosses I made. Going through the same effects chain as the dog thing. This is a weird little vocal loop that I made years ago. Just repurposed here. This is Soma Ether. That just records. It's like a radio that records at no particular frequency, so it's just recording like electrical noise is basically what it's recording. The water sounds are mostly me in the bathtub. When I moved to the location that I lived in for about half the recording of this, for a variety of reasons, I just took a couple of baths, which I don't usually do, but it doesn't really matter why I did it. And I knew I needed some water sounds for the thing, so I was like, well, I'm in the bath, I may as well record some water sounds. So these water sounds are... This is all me. Oh, this is all me. This is all my big... All these water sounds that you hear here, that's all me running water for a bath, sitting in the bath and splashing around. There are a couple of these two splashes right here at the beginning. The big splash here and this big splash here. Those are not. Those came from a friend of mine. Shout out to Make Mistakes, Fortune Finder. A friend of mine who is he's a musician in his own right, an excellent musician in his own right, and also is the sound designer for Ruckus Games, like lead sound and music guy for Ruckus Games, and yeah, so I just said, hey man, can I borrow some? I need some water splash sounds. I couldn't find good ones that I liked. The ones that I had were too percussive, too much slap in them, and so they didn't sound splashy enough. They sounded like this weird, kind of a crack sound, if you will. And that's not what I was after. So I had to borrow some splash sounds from big bottle, or not bottle, big cannonball, someone cannonballing into a pool type sound from him. It's probably way too much detail about the water sounds in this. So this transition sound here, this kind of clicky, weird thing is, I recorded some cicadas. I think they're cicadas. It sounded like cicadas outside my house in Colorado, in Lakewood, Colorado, and then slowed it down an octave. Okay, and then underneath that, you have this kind of weird pigments patch. It's kind of a sound effecty patch. It's weird shifting chain noises and whatnot. And then a wave station patch that's kind of similar. It's got some shakery type noises in it, and some wind chime kind of noises. Yeah. And so that's all the intro to the track. And then there's this other important part here. This is kind of interesting. So I decided I wanted a sound like almost like a loon or something, so sort of mysterious, like something calling and echoing through the hills. Hey, Swarm, how's it going, man? So what I did is I recorded, I mentioned on the last one that I really tried to incorporate things that were instrumental in helping me record this album. I made them a literal part of the album. Like you can hear them on the album, not all, but most of them. And one of those, I was drinking a stupid amount of Mountain Dew. It's my weakness. I know soda's terrible and Mountain Dew is uniquely disgusting, but I think largely the combination of having a lot of caffeine and also being relatively not as heavy mouthfeel as some things are. Like Coke just leaves this weird residue in my mouth that Mountain Dew doesn't, even though I know it's pretty syrupy. Anyway, drink a lot of Mountain Dew. And this is me blowing over the mouth of a Mountain Dew bottle. And then I want to say I pitched it up an octave. Yeah, it's pitched up an octave. So, yeah, to get that sound. And it's in... I blew, just made a recording of myself blowing over the mouth of the bottle, maybe 6 times, and then cut it up. Those 3 are the 3 that I liked the best, I felt were the most suiting. And then there's this little piece of Benjamin sweep in this intro as well. It's kind of a weird thing there. And then, so the intro together is all those bits. There's the bottle blow. Weird blang effects. All right. Then the song proper starts. And yeah, you can see this is lots of little bits doing lots of little things here. This is Microbrute 2 doing a lot of weird sound effect stuff. A lot of effects on it. There's the effects chain, so you've got a phaser and an echo. Not that many effects, I guess. And then underneath that, there's this it says K4 Candy. Looks like it's just some low tones to kind of reinforce what was going on. The Candy, it must be the name of the patch, whatever it says here. Candy, or maybe it just says Candy Ear, like ear candy. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how this track came out. It was supposed to be sort of future sound of London-like, and I've definitely had a couple people say that it reminds them of that. I've also heard some... This is in Sonic ESQ, by the way. That was my vintage synth of the album. It is on maybe a half or a third of the tracks. It was a loaner. I just had it for like 3 months in my studio and recorded parts for a bunch of the tracks. But yeah, anyway, it's got 2 different bass parts. The main bass part, like I said, is the Strega, and this other bass here is Micro Freak. I think it's a patch called Presence Bass. And as I recall, I actually just played this along. Like, this is not sequenced at all. Oh, interesting. Micro stuff sounds Half-Life, actually. Not familiar. I mean, I'm familiar with Half-Life in concept. I know what it is. I've never actually played it, so. But that sounds like a good thing, right? It's a beloved game. Yeah, I actually played this bass line live. Just was listening along with the track and playing it. My stuff is a mix of sequenced and played live. Sometimes I sequence it completely. More often it's a mixture of like playing parts in and then tweaking them on the MIDI, the piano roll, fixing some flub notes or cleaning up my fat-fingered, where I accidentally hit an extra note, moving the timing around a little. I tend to rush the timing of things. I know it's better to lay back and actually let things some more drum sounds. And these are some sampled drum sounds I did to add, layered underneath to add some depth and a little more weirdness. This is a sound that I probably created this 30 plus years ago. It's like a time-stretched shaker sound, I want to say. I've had it so long, I honestly don't remember. And I've used it multiple times. I think it's in my sample pack, actually. It's called Chitness Unfurling. If you go on to Gumroad, I have a sample pack called Ether Diver Sample Lab 1 that's got a bunch of samples that I've used in various tracks. And I think that's one of them. People love Valve, love Half-Life 2, and I know the sound design is supposed to be incredible. So anyone if you're going to compare my stuff to that, I'm flattered, even though I don't actually know specifically what you are comparing it to. Let's see, K4. Oh yeah, right. That's just the that sort of weird. And this is again an easel part. It says B easel. I must have come in later and decided that this needed a second easel part and recorded this. I don't actually remember. It's not in my notes either. So, but yeah, that is this track pretty much. Squirrel sounds, a lot of weird sounds in it. Yeah, and I put it basically ends the side of the album, right? And I know that digital albums don't have sides, but that's the way I grew up, and that's the way I tend to think of things. So this is the end of side 1 in my conception. And that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions on this track, I mean, no one's asked any so far, so I'm going to assume no one does, and to stay on track with time, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the other track. So the second track we're going to look at, nope, don't save the changes, is, and I know I didn't look at the mastering chain on this one. We can look at it on the other one. They're all the same. I use the same mastering chain on every one. So if you are interested in the mastering chain, it will be the same chain here. There might be some different automation or whatever, but as I've discussed in previous entries, I actually didn't automate a lot when it came to mastering. I think there's only 2 or 3 tracks that have any automation at all, and it's always just like a compressor changes its settings just a little bit. Like early on, I needed a little extra compression for the drums, but then I wanted it to open up for the back part of it. So like at one point, the compressor opens up a little bit. The compression goes from 2.5 to 2.1 or something like that ratio. That's what we're talking about, that kind of automation. Or like a little EQ creeps in and then creeps back out because there was one point where it was problematic, but I didn't want to cut a bunch of mids throughout the whole track. So that's really all the automation that's in the mastering anyways. You're not missing anything by not going through each one step by step. Okay, this track is It's called Logistics and Heuristics of the Mystics. If you are a Brian Eno fan, you might recognize that title. Is a lyric from the song Backwater from Before and After Science, which is a song that I was obsessed with for years. Maybe I'm still obsessed with it since I'm naming songs after it, or naming tracks after it, but it's just it's a great song and it's a great line. If you study the logistics and heuristics of the mystics, you will find that their minds rarely move in a line. That's the whole lyric. I just always thought that was just a very clever thing, an interesting thing, and so I had this album about literally the logistics of mystics. What are mystics doing? What are they experiencing? What does it all mean? That's the idea behind the album, and so I had to borrow that title, and originally was a study of the logistics and heuristics of the mystics, and then I switched to Logistics and Heuristics of the Mystics, a study, and then I just, Logistics and Heuristics of the Mystics is enough. It doesn't need the study. So that's where we're at with the title. Here's the song. This one is the first one. So I started this album in May of 2023. Within the MPC, I was recording, building everything in the MPC. The first 2 tracks were like just me assembling pieces in the MPC. I got a little riff here and a little sample there, and like record this chord progression in, and just building stuff up like that. I kind of went into that in the last one. By all means, you should go check it out. If you that's right, Scott, another Eno fan. Sorry, that completely derailed my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh yeah, right. So I was building all this inside the MPC, and I did that for about a year. And then when I moved to California last year, I was kind of stuck on this album. I was working on it, but I just didn't feel like I was making good progress. And my computer at the time, coincidentally, this is totally random, my PC computer at the time was dying. It is still technically functional, so it never did finish dying, but it was really having a hard time. And it was like 12 years old, 13 years old at the time, so it's not surprising that it died. It's definitely time for a new computer. Started doing some shopping, comparison shopping, figuring out what I could afford. And what I realized pretty quickly is that, I swear this is relevant, by the way, I'm not just rambling about my computer shopping experience. What I found out relatively early into my research is that for PCs on my budget, I was probably going to be relegated to a computer that was very much a step down from what I was using. The computer I had was an absolute beast. My dad had built it as a home theater PC, and my dad, he was still working before he retired, or maybe it was right after he retired, and so he had money and time, and my dad's always been a bit of an overkill guy, so he built this truly ridiculous home theater PC back in 2015, 2014, and then he just gave it to me when it was done. Because that's how he is. The fun of the project is building it, not having it. So he built this ridiculous home theater PC, and then he's like, okay, well, I don't actually have any use for this. Do you want it? Do you need a computer? And I was like, well, fuck, yeah, that's way better than my computer. So anyway, I had this computer for years. That was my music computer. It was my everything computer. It was finally dying. I was looking into new computers, and I realized, wow, okay, any PC I buy is essentially going to be a step down from this. Like, that thing had 32 gigs of RAM, and like everything I was looking at was like I could maybe afford 16 or 24, yada yada. And like spec-wise, it just wasn't. It was going to feel like a step down from what I was using in a lot of ways. Like some things had improved, but other things really hadn't. Like, like benchmark specs even of the computers, the chips that I could afford on my budget were kind of shit compared to the benchmarks of this 10, 12-year-old chip. I mean, they were better, but they weren't that much better. Anyway, so someone mentioned Mac. I had never been a Mac guy. I was like, I don't know about that. But I started looking into it, and one of the things I found out right away is that the entry-level Mac Mini, which is what this is, 8 gigabytes, 256 SSD, 256 gigabyte SSD, just entry-level, was completely up to the task of running Ableton, which is the DAW that I had used before I went to MPC, and still had a license for. So I was like, well, okay, maybe this is an opportunity to get back into computer production, since one of the reasons I had gone DAWless, not the only reason, but one of the reasons, is that my computer was having a little trouble keeping up with the software at the time. I talked to a bunch of people who had this exact Mac, and they were all like, oh yeah, it runs Ableton great. Like, I'd never had a hiccup. It's wonderful. So I got it thinking I'll try it out. I'll hammer it for the first month where I can still in the return window. And if it, doesn't do that, I'll ship it back and just get the PC that I'm used to and just accept that it's not going to run Ableton. So this was basically a bonus. I needed a new PC. I heard that the Mac could run Ableton. So I thought, well, okay, I'll switch to a Mac if it can run Ableton for me. I did. It works great. I spent way too much time on that story. I apologize. But that's how I made the jump to Mac. That's how I ended up in here. And this is the first track that made the jump to PC. So it's April of last year. I've just gotten a Macintosh. I've installed Ableton on it. I spent a few days just opening up all my various different soft synths and seeing if they worked, seeing if I could hear crackle when I was playing 8 voices, yada yada. Decided not, and I said, okay, fuck. Let's transfer some of these tracks into here. This is the first one I did. The first thing I added, because I did this track because I liked what I had, but it seemed to be missing. There was just something missing, and I could not figure out what was missing. It wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't on the MPC. Whatever was missing was not something I had access to. But when I put it in the MPC, took it out of the MPC, put it into Ableton, I was like, oh, Ableton has all these soft synths that I've never used before, and I've also got Pigments, which I had purchased months before I stopped using my PC. In part, it's because it couldn't really keep up with Pigments. It couldn't keep up with any of the Ableton soft synths. It would just crackle and crap out. So anyway, I was like, let's try out some of these soft synths and see what's what. And this was the first thing, this lead right here. So I dumped the track in. The MPC has a way of, you can export Ableton tracks. So I exported this track as an Ableton live file, loaded it up into Ableton, and started playing with it. And the first thing I did was add this wavetable synth that had a preset called Skate Park, it looks like it was called. I tweaked that just a little bit, not a ton, and renamed it Cosmic Laughy because it sounded like weird laughter. So it was like a cosmic laugh, right? And just recorded this. Speaking of played it in, I played this in. This is me playing. I think I quantized it after the fact, but I did play this lead, and it's completely improvised, and this is my first take. I just fired up this patch, let the track play, and played this lead over the top of it while the track played, and was like, okay, that's fantastic. And after this, I was like, this is going to work. This is going to be amazing. This is going to help me finish this album. So this track and that lead that you just heard, that's why this was my proof of concept. That I could put this into Ableton, and that I wouldn't sort of lose my focus. I wouldn't have to start from scratch or lose progress that I had made in the thing, because that was part of it too. Is like, okay, well, what if I put everything in here and it's all fucked up, right? The timing's off, or some of the files didn't transfer correctly, yada yada, and they didn't. Everything worked great. So let me say that if you have an MPC, or you're thinking about using an MPC, the newer MPCs, and you're an Ableton Live guy, or girl, Ableton Live person, I should say, regardless of gender identity or expression, sexual identity or expression, a human being who uses Ableton and the MPC platform, you can absolutely export your MPC files as Ableton files, load them up, no problem, and just kind of hit the ground running. Recorded that in, and then it was like, okay, this is all going to work. This is going to be great, and got going on the whole project. So this one is pivotal in the conception and creation of this album. So it's also one of the more popular ones. It's definitely one that I've gotten a lot of praise and compliments on. Oh, I also, while I was recording this, I almost destroyed a different track that I really liked while recording this, because I was, by this point, again, this was the 8th jam that I did, the 10th track that I worked on of 13. There was 13 originally. There was one that got ditched. When I recorded the jam, I made a note in here. It says, "Oops, it wouldn't be me unless I fucked up a recording or two." So what I did is when I went to record this jam, after I had recorded the last one, I forgot to create a new file for it on the recorder, and so I just recorded over. Luckily, thank God, the first one that I had done that got recorded over, I was really feeling it, and so I recorded like 35 minutes of it or something, like more than most of the tracks. So then when I did 20 minutes of this, it meant there was still 10 or 11 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever it was, left of the other one that got recorded over. So I did lose one entire take and most of another take, but there was enough left, and because of the way that I created these tracks was really just, taking the quote-unquote best parts of the jam, cutting them up, looping them, and then building on them. And because of that, there was enough left of the one that got recorded over to make the other track, which is Sound of Magic is what that track is, the one that got erased, and this is the one that got recorded over. Okay, anyway, this track is an A major. It's at 97 BPM. It's A major, F sharp major 7, or minor 7, C sharp minor, and then ends on D major. That's chord progression. It's 1, 6, 3, 4 chord progression. And although I did I think I screwed with the chords a little bit too, like there's maybe some borrowed notes and stuff in there. The bass on this is tube synth from the MPC. So this bass is a soft synth from the MPC, if you can believe that. Yes, ladies, gentlemen, and beings beyond comprehension. I'm down with that. I've said ladies, gentlemen, all in between and outside of that particular box as well, which I think covers it pretty nicely as well. Trans rights or human rights, if you have a problem with that, you can get the fuck out of my stream and out of my life forever. I assume no one watching this does, but just in case, you can get fucked. And also Charlie Kirk sucks, and I'm glad he's dead. Just going to throw that in there in case anyone is here who wants to tone police, you can just go do it somewhere else. We don't do that here. So anyway, that bass is completely from the... it's like, again, it's a soft synth. It's even a preset. It's called Pulse Filter or Pulse Fitter. My handwriting is shit, so it's probably Pulse Filter. Tube synth preset from the MPC. Yeah, and then the chords on this are something that's called Short Blap, and that is also from... That is a nice chord progression, if I do say so myself. But yeah, that is another Hydrosynth preset. What is the lead? Is probably... Yeah. That's Strega. That's definitely Strega. And by this point, I was definitely not... Like, this was the point, or by this point, I was already, like... I had used those core instruments so much, the Oko, Strega, Hydrosynth, and Drum Brute, that I was leaving one out. And so I think on this one I left the O-Coast out, which is not to say I didn't use some O-Coast sounds later, just that when I was doing the jam, it didn't make it in there. Here's some weird little K4 sound effects. And this is one that I think you can really hear how sort of gritty the sound is. There's a buttload of effects on this too, but like high pass filter, some distortion, chorus, beat chop effects. Oh wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong chain. Never mind. Okay, so we got some distortion, wild auto panning, delay, and then a phaser that comes in and out. That makes more sense. Sorry, looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, but yeah, anyway, you can hear the aliasing distortion, I think, on this pretty well. I've mentioned before that this K4 synthesizer, which I've recently sold, soloed by itself frequently sounds like shit. However, it always sounds amazing in the mix, and I don't know why. It's magic that way. Okay, this ARP is... Oh, this is from the Hydrasynth. This ARP is from the Hydrasynth. It's from a patch that was called Alpha Complex, which I'm going to release those patches for free at some point. I just need to make the time to like do it, to put them up, and this will be on there. This patch will be on there. But yeah, that patch is that, and you can see I cut it up some. Yeah, reverse some parts of it. That's what I did. So this was like this arpeggiated chord sequence, basically, and it was cool, but it got a little samey over time, and so I just cut certain parts of it up and reversed them to keep it interesting. Let's see. This is some bit crush noise, I want to say. Yeah, so this is like a transition here. Transitional element. So that's just some noise, and it gets a little more interesting here at the end as the filter's opening up. Yeah, and then there's this other part of this transition. This is microbrute true. So this is the transition from the intro to the main part of the song. Transition together. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Opening chords. That's Wave Station. I just recognize that. That's definitely the Wave Station. Oh, it's also in my notes too. It's not just that I recognize it. That is definitely, it is in my notes, but that is the Wave Station. And that one was actually, I have the Wave Station plugin on both my iPad and on my computer, and I recorded that on the iPad because it was before I... And so I reinforced this with, there's a few different elements here. So there's this Pigments patch. This is me. And just samples of me going, oh, oh, cut up, obviously put into a drum sampler, and just triggering different parts. There's 3 different samples. They're all the same sample, but just different parts of the sample. Let's see, boom, boom, and boom. And there's more of that here, actually. And again, I think this is actually the same sample. It's just cut up. Different part of it cut up. Together with the rest of it. So you got these kind of opening chords, arpeggiator, the occasional like little wisp of voice, and then the voice goes through, the one side of them goes through most of the track, about halfway through, before it disappears. Yeah. And then I think that's pretty much it. I mean, this lead was Strega. Oh, I doubled the lead. Oh yeah, that's an interesting part. So this lead kind of plays the same thing. Like there's this section here which plays the same riff over and over again. Again, because I was improvising this. This is just like the 2-bar sequence that was playing on the was playing through a launchpad onto the Strega, and it repeats over. And here you start to hear it go a little crazy, and that's because I put this beat repeat on here. This is the channel we were looking at when I was thinking it was that one down there. Yeah, and so it's got some distortion, a little bit of classic, but really what's going on here is this. If I turn that off, it's like just doing the same thing, and you can see it goes on and off here. It's automated. Gotta turn the automation back on. Automation back on, thank you. So it's off here, off, and then it transitions to a different part here. But anyway, the point being is the riff was important. It was the only lead riff that I had. But it got kind of boring hearing it over and over again. So what you can see I did here, it repeats once. The second time it repeats, it gets doubled by this, which I believe is the same MIDI, but on a very different patch. It's a Dream Synth patch called Big Brother. All right. And then after the repeat, or after the layering, it kicks on the first. So it plays once, first repeat that it's layered with something else. What would be the second repeat? So the third iteration. That's when the beat repeat gets turned on and starts cutting it up. And so this is just basically kind of doing a live, real-time chop. Bass sound is 90s techno-ish. I am very inspired by a rave Hoover, for sure. I make Hoover patches on just about everything I ever do, and it could be that what you're hearing there, or what I was hearing when I picked the space sound, was some vague resemblance to the Hoover, and I was like, oh yeah, I like that, it's Hoovery, although I don't remember thinking that specifically. I do appreciate you guys having discussion in the chat, by the way, even as I ramble on and ignore it. It's nice to look down and see that there's some things for me to respond to. But yeah, okay, so that's pretty much it, and we have 9 minutes left. So, questions? Oh, we can look, let's look at the master of this, since we didn't look at the last one. If this is your first time joining me, this is what my mastering chain looks like on all of these. It's a multi-band compressor first, glue compressor, saturator, 8-band EQ, just the default one that comes with this, and then the limiter I use is the Max for Live Essentials pack called plugin called Color Limiter, and it's like a different limiter than the one that comes with Ableton, which people seem to hate, the one that comes with Ableton. So upon the recommendation of a YouTuber who I was gleaning some information at the time, I think his name is Zdrewe, Z-D-R-E-W-E, if you want to look him up. Sorry about the big pop that just happened when I accidentally hit my microphone. I believe it was him that recommended this to me. He just said, use any other limiter than the one that comes with Ableton, including this one that also comes with Ableton. And I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to use essentially stock plugins only, at least as far as the effects plugins. I just didn't want to get into like a whole trying to figure out, oh, what's the best this or that or whatever plugin. Just the idea like, hey, these should be good enough, what comes with it, right? And so I use this, that's why the only thing that's not an actual bog standard plugin in here is this master limiter. And it does come free with Suite. If you have Suite, which I have, it comes, Max for Live is part of that, and you can download this master limiter. Otherwise, these are literally the stock plugins. The multiband compression, just doing a little bit. This is like the newest addition to my chain. A lot of people mentioned that this was one of the first things in their chain, and I had been experimenting with it a little bit. And so yeah, so I think I just start on like the default setting and then just tweaked it a little bit. Anytime I felt like the low end was mushy or the mid was too bright or whatever, I was able to use this, actually dial in the multiband compressor to really help that. The glue compressor is to glue. It's literally in the name. That's what it's trying to do, is give everything a sense of cohesion. I use pretty simple, low, what most people would consider very modest, very minor settings on this. 2-to-1 compression, automatic release, 3 millisecond attack. I pretty much stuck around this same, like this, they might all actually be set to exactly these settings, but if not, they're not much different. 6.67 dBs, the threshold negative 6.5 dBs, just a few dBs of makeup. Again, I'm not trying to do everything with this compressor. I'm just trying to, and if you watch this while it plays, turn on the solo. It's, the needle's moving, but it's not moving a lot. It's just a little, just doing a little bit there, right? Okay. After that, saturator to add some, a little sizzle, some high harmonics, and a little yumminess. EQ8, very mild EQ settings. As you can see, this is just doing a little bit of cut here and here. Overall, the mid-range sometimes just gets a little harsh. And then the mastering, also fairly mild. 3 dBs of loudness, 500 millisecond release. These I tweaked individually for all these, just kind of by ear, but off a pretty, if you looked at all of them, they'd all be, I think, slightly different, but all very similar. And again, if you can watch the needle move. It's not doing much. It's not getting driven super hard. It does it. I mean, you can hear the difference there, and that's it. That's the mastering change. Mixing this one too, yeah. Multi-gland is really interesting stuff too. It's just something I'm still kind of figuring it out, still learning about. I certainly would not claim to be anything like an expert on it. I am still very much a novice with all of this. Although, again, let me use that as an opportunity to plug figuring it out for yourself. There's no ozone or RX. I guess RX7 is more like denoising and stuff, or RX or whatever. I don't use any of the automated, no fab filter, none of those kind of high-end, super specialized mastering plugins, mastering chains. I've tried them. I did not like them because I did not understand them. I found them opaque and impenetrable. Too much going on that I didn't understand. Maybe now I could go back and look at it and have a better idea. At the time that I was looking at them, I was much more naive about the mastering side of things. But now that I've mastered a couple of my albums on this sort of keep it simple, stupid principle, which is just to say, while I'm doing it, if I don't understand what's happening, I'm not going to fucking do it. I'm not going to people say, oh, do this and this, it makes it sound better. But if I don't understand it and I can't control it, then I'm not really interested. Now, I'm not a fanatic about that. If I can use a preset and I just hear that it's better, great. But what I found is that I would put in ozone, choose a preset that was supposed to be, matched to the kind of music that was as close to the kind of music I was creating as possible, and run it through there, and it just would sound like shit. It sounded worse in every single instance. Tried other ones that were different, sounded like shit. Didn't like it. So I bailed on that, and just was like, I guess I'm just gonna have to figure this out for myself. And it's paid off. I'm no mastering expert by any means. I think this album sounds better than the last one mastering. I think the last one sounded better than the one before. I'm moving in the right direction. That's what's important to me. People have told me this sounds good. I think it sounds good. I'm happy with it. And yeah, as you can see, you don't need a bunch of specialized plugins. You don't need a ton of automation and wizardry. If you mix your stuff right and record it right, ideally, it shouldn't need a whole lot of help. You're just trying to make it a little louder with the mastering, and so that's what I've done here. Yeah, saturator is interesting. It's really a mild distortion, right? That's what a saturator is. And I had never encountered it before Ableton, but I became addicted to it using it in Ableton because you can drop it in almost anything and it always just kind of it's like a sound betterizer, which is, in my mind, a whole class of effects or sound goodizer is what I call them. The saturator is more of a sound betterizer, which is to say it doesn't make something bad sound good, but it makes something good sound better. But then there's also sound goodizers where you can take shit sounds and put them in and it makes them sound good. The Morphogene is a sound goodizer. The Panharmonium is a sound goodizer. Some effects units are sound goodizers. Eventide H3000 is a sound goodizer. Whatever you put into it, you could probably make it sound good. Obviously, if you start with something that sounds good, it's going to sound better. But yeah, multi-band effects are sound betterizers in a lot of ways. The way that they can act on just certain bands. And that's really the magic of it, is that a lot of times what it's doing is the bass is a little mushy. It's like trying to spread out outside of the bass area or something. I don't know what it's doing, but it just gets a little clogged up and mushy on the low end, and you can dial in a little low-end multi-band compression that doesn't do much to the rest of your song, or the rest of your track doesn't do much at all, maybe nothing, but it does control that low end and help keep it contained. MSG, yeah, right, exactly. It very much is like umami for sound. Just like a little MSG, put it on there, and it just sounds a little better. And I try and keep it mild because I think there can be, with something like that, with MSG, whatever, there's that tendency to want to just do more and just turn it up more and have a little more. Well, if a little tastes good, a lot must taste great. And I don't know if that's true, so I keep it pretty modest, but obviously different strokes for different folks. And that's it. That's those 2 tracks. I don't really have anything else to say about them unless someone has questions for me. We're now more than halfway through. This takes us through tracks 5 and 6 of 12. Oh, so we're halfway through, actually, I guess is where we're at. Next week, I will do 2 more. It seems like 2 per track. Now that I got the hang of it, 2 per hour stream seems like the right amount. If you disagree, if I'm going too slow or too fast, too much detail, not enough detail, let me know. You can let me know in a comment here. You can come find me on Blue Sky, Mastodon. Let me know over there. It's all good. And once I'm done with the album stuff, I will be moving on. I'll still be streaming every week, and I'll be moving on to more, I don't know, sound design stuff. Whatever, maybe I'll have a track to mix by then. I am working on producing someone else's stuff. Just getting started on it. We haven't actually got a proper start yet, so I certainly don't have anything to show or talk about yet, but maybe by the time I'm done with covering this album, I will, and I can walk you through some of that. We'll see what happens. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that, Swarm. I appreciate that you like the lead in this. I assume you mean there's kind of 2 leads. There's the first lead and then the second lead, even though they play at the same time. So I don't know if do you mean this one? Or this one? Or maybe the combination of the 2, I don't know. But either way, I appreciate hearing that input. Yeah, okay, well, no, I appreciate it. I'm the pink one. Oh, yeah, okay, so the original, the OG lead. Yeah, thank you. It's, Strega is a very evocative instrument. And I'm sure now that it's been out for like 4 or 5, 7 years, whatever it's been now, there's people that can pick it out of any mix and are very, very tired of it. But to me, it is an iconic instrument that I probably will never tire of. So I guess I hope you all like hearing it, because you're probably going to continue to hear it in my music at least. But yeah, that's it. We've reached the 1 hour mark, and I'm going to wrap this up. I have been playing these out. I guess I can play this out. I'll play this out, and then I will end the track. In the stream, rather. Thank you all for coming by. This will be available as video on demand if you came late or wanted to go back and rewatch certain sections. It'll be up minutes after it's over, I think. Thank you again for coming. You were all wonderful people, and I really appreciate you coming to hang out with me for an hour a week and learn about some more of my music stuff and talk to me about how it was made and all that stuff. And remember, anytime you have questions, even if it's going to derail the conversation, I do not care. I'm more interested in answering questions and covering what you want to hear about than I am in hearing my own thoughts. I know what's in my head. I don't need to hear it again. So, okay, thanks again. Take care. I will see you in a week. I guess you're also going to hear my dog here. He's barking at the mailman. That's all, folks. Thanks again for coming by. I really appreciate it. I will see you all hopefully in a week.